Today for predictions versus reality, we're continuing the AFC West, talking about one of the most surprising teams in the NFL and one that I was so happy to do well. I'm talking about the Denver Broncos. We're going to talk about where I had them in August, what went right with their season, and how they can improve and get better so they continue the success that they had in 2024. Before we begin officially, all right, and welcome in, everybody. Hope you're having a fantastic, fantabulous, awesome freaking day. I'm sorry. Oh, man, sometimes I do stuff like that and crack myself up. But anyways, welcome in, everybody. Hope you're having a fantastic, fantabulous, awesome freaking day. My name is Garrett Shumake, and you are listening to the Shumake Take. Welcome in to Predictions versus Reality. The offseason series continues and wraps up very quickly as free agency is approaching next week. A couple more things before we begin. If you're new around here on the channel and you like the content that you're listening to / watching, go ahead and consider hitting the like button and subscribe button. It only takes a couple of seconds. It would help the channel out tremendously, help me out, continuing to spread my football passion to more and more people on this platform. The next thing is, because these videos are dropping with free agency happening in a couple of days, news is already beginning to drop with players being signed, traded, cut. So news is dropping quickly, very, very quickly here. So if something happens with your team and I did not cover that topic, and if it's pretty big, it's not because I purposely left it out or forgot it. It's because I recorded the video and the news dropped afterward, which was just too little too late. News is just dropping out really quickly, and me not being behind on predictions versus reality is definitely not the most ideal situation. But that's want to make that little disclaimer right here, right now. Let's begin talking about the Broncos. What did I have this team in August? I had this team going 4-13, which, looking in retrospect, Jesus Christ, that's a very stark difference from where they actually finished. But at the time, I think me, along with many other people, shared the same sentiment that this roster just did not look good. A rookie quarterback with no good weapons outside of Cortland Sutton, and a defense that, quite frankly, at the time, outside of a couple players, was devoid of talent. Like, nothing there. I thought the Denver Broncos defense would be terrible this year. I thought the offense could show some good things, but I really thought this defense was going to be garbage. I genuinely believe that. And looking at that now, their defense was actually not much better, but their defense was actually a lot better than I thought. And also, they were the better part of their unit, of their team. Going back, though, to why I had them going 4-13, along with all the stuff with the roster not being good, cutting Russell Wilson was a necessary move, but also left a bad taste in my mouth because of the dead cap that he brought, the largest dead cap in NFL history, by the way, if you guys remember, which that's crazy to think about. I did a whole article on that when I was in college. Anyways, so the team just felt really far away from being competitive. This year, as I've kind of laughed about, or as I did laugh about, kind of, what... That's kind of laughing? I don't know. Let me know your guys' thoughts. Who knows? I guess comedy and humor is subjective, so who knows at this point, really. But anyways, what happened with the Raiders? Not the Raiders. I just recorded that, by the way. I'm sorry. The Broncos season. Man, this is starting to be a train wreck to start this episode. Jesus. Anyways, the Denver Broncos went 10-7, and not only did they go 10-7, they had their first winning season since 2016, and they had their first playoff appearance since 2015, which is the year they won Super Bowl 50, and Peyton Manning rode off into the sunset. Their offense overall this year finished 19th overall, and their defense finished 7th. The three best wins on the year were against Tampa Bay in Week 3, 26-7. They beat Atlanta in the middle of the year, 38-6, and then at the end of the year, they beat Kansas City 38-0. Now, that one specifically, obviously, a lot of people would kind of argue with that and say, why is that one of their best wins? Because it was against backups. It was, but also the Broncos needed to win to get in. So for them to go out and have the performance that they did on offense and defense, despite the fact that, okay, yeah, they're backups, so the win was probably more guaranteed. But it's the fact that they went out there and gave it their all to go get into the playoffs. They had something to fight for, and they showed that in that win, which is why I put it on there, because that win was very important to them. So talking about their season, the season, if you had told me going into week 3 that the Broncos would go 10-7 and make the playoffs, I would have laughed in your face. The Broncos, after the first 2 weeks, looked like a 4-13 football team. They were awful on offense. Their defense was just all over the place. They were letting guys open. Could not get stops. The team in the first 2 weeks looked exactly like the team people thought they would look like. And then the game that actually kind of kick-started everything was that surprise win against Tampa, where they won 26-7 in Tampa Bay. And I went from starting 0-2 to going 3-2. And then a couple wins after that, this team looked a little bit frisky. Like, okay, this team's actually a little better than what people thought. And then they continued winning more and more and more. And then, bam, they're in the playoffs. So a year that kind of started, that fit the narrative, and then they continued to win games, play better, and rewrite that narrative to now, I can say Denver is a team that has one of the brightest futures in the NFL right now, which is a very stark difference compared to what I had them before. But also, there's a lot of things you got to talk about that went right with this group that helped them get to where they are. Number one is coaching. I already mentioned with what this team looked like after week 2 and what they went on. But coaching, you got to think about Sean Payton, and you really got to give him a lot of credit here, because Sean Payton, obviously, he's been with the New Orleans Saints forever. He won a Super Bowl there. He is known as being like one of the all-time great head coaches, especially on the offensive side of the football. So I just thought at the time the roster was just not good enough. But when you have a good coach like Sean Payton, you're going to elevate your team and make them do good things. And the Denver Broncos did not just do good things, they went on to do really good things. Starting with the next thing that went right, rookie quarterback out of Oregon, Bo Nix, when he was picked 12th overall by this team, and then Sean Payton came out and was like, oh, he's the best quarterback in the draft and whatnot. And obviously he's got to say that stuff because he's hyping up his quarterback, right? He just took him. But at the same time, people were like, ha, 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 what are you talking about? The guy that failed at Auburn, went to Oregon in the Big Ten, couldn't make it happen in the SEC, so he had to go into the Big Ten. And while that narrative, I think, is slowly dying, where the SEC, while I still think is objectively the best, the Big Ten has a lot of good football teams and good football programs in that conference, so they deserve their credit. But that's a different conversation. Anyways, Bo Nix shined in year 1 ways that I never thought. Not only did he play well, his rookie numbers were comparable to Jaden Daniels, right? And Jaden Daniels won offensive rookie of the year. Do with that what you will. But also, despite the lack of talent around him on the offensive side of the ball, if I'm being honest, it did not slow him down. He made very dazzling throws. He was really good running the football, which he wasn't really known for coming out of Oregon. That turned some heads, including mine. I was like, wow, this guy's got some wheels on him. So Bo Nix, there was a reason why he was the finalist for Rookie of the Year, and he showed that compared to most quarterbacks in a situation like his, seeing what he was able to do, he was ahead of the curve. And you look at his 5 years experience in college, and you can say that also helped, and I believe that also helped. That experience obviously helped him accelerate the game a little bit. Well, may not accelerate his game and then slow down the game from his perspective, if that makes sense. But Bo Nix has just had a fantastic rookie season regardless. The next thing, if you have a good rookie quarterback, one thing that you really have to have going well for you is your offensive line, which they finished 11th in 2023. They were a pretty good unit last year, but in 2024, they jumped into a top 5 unit. They were fantastic. They were really, really good this year. And you look at their numbers, they showed high levels of pass blocking efficiency. That's where they were at their best. The run game was a little bit less, but they were still a solid unit. I think it was just more of the running backs in that room just not being good enough right now. But the offensive line overall was a really, really, really good unit, and it really sparked everything else that happened on offense and leading to their success. Which, continuing on with that, never mind. We're not going to talk about the receivers, because Cortland Sutton did good things. Marvin Mims, he did some good things kind of later on the other half of the year, but guys like Troy Franklin got hurt, right? So there wasn't much notability there at the receiver position. No, Devon Vele as a rookie, he had a couple good signs, so that was nice. He was going to go 7th round pick, I'm pretty sure. But moving on to the next thing that went right, the side of the ball that I said was devoid of talent this defense that ended up being better than their offense? Well, it actually turns out they have a lot of talent on that group. Patrick Surtain, obviously that's the first person that comes to mind. He won Defensive Player of the Year, had an incredible year altogether. Congratulations to him, by the way. I don't know if I properly congratulated him. He was not my pick to be Defensive Player of the Year, but at the same time, Patrick Surtain is one heck of a player. He's the best corner in the NFL right now. He definitely deserves to at least be in that conversation and end up winning the award. So congratulations to him. But it wasn't just him. Guys like Nick Bonito, Jonathan Cooper, Zach Allen, John Franklin Myers all took massive leaps, especially Nick Bonito, who was some people thought he could have been an All-Pro. He was a Pro Bowler, had a really good year. And then free agent signings like Cody Barton and Brandon Jones provided immediate success to help elevate this group. And I really want to give a lot of credit to defensive coordinator Vance Joseph. The thing was, when he was brought back to be the defensive coordinator this year, it kind of felt awkward because he was a Denver Broncos head coach not years and years, but a little while ago. And he was bad, got ran out of town. And so to see him come back was a little bit weird, right? But now the fans that ran him out of town all years ago are probably loving him now for what he was done with this defense. And you took a unit last year that was okay, but now they were one of the league's best units, which they finished top 5 in nearly every unit, including leading the league in sacks. They had the best pass rush in the NFL this year, and it really helped this offense continue to grow and develop, and also really helped this secondary, which was the worst part of their team in my opinion. But we'll talk about more in a second. The last thing that went right, I want to also mention it here, kind of like I mentioned with the Washington Commanders video. If you want to go check that out, go ahead. But the Denver Broncos also went under new ownership this year. They were bought by the Walton family, which, if you don't know, they own Walmart. Wow, that name that kind of makes sense, right? Wow, Waltons own Walmart. Wow. But anyways, so the new ownership clearly had a vision to help make this team get better, and it was such a huge breath of fresh air. And usually when you have changes at the top, it can be that great change because it's a new perspective at the top. It's a new feeling because now now the people at the top are not having to worry about team reputation as much. They're not having to worry about this and that and the politics of the NFL because they're here. They'll worry about that later. Right now, their primary focus is to get this team better. And you know what? They went out and they did that. So give credit to this new ownership for allowing that to happen and putting in the work to help contribute to make it happen. So now, what do the Broncos need to do to get better and improve? Because despite the fact that they went 10-7, it was a great year, historic year, even for this football team, they still have plenty of work to do. The first thing I want to mention is that against teams that with a losing record, they were 8-0. They went undefeated. But against teams that had a winning record, they finished 2-7. That's a jump. That's a number. That's a stat that's going to have to change if they want to improve. Because you look at a team like the Miami Dolphins in 2023, they were just like that, where they won every game that was below 500, and every team that was above 500, they won only one game, and then they go into the playoffs against Kansas City and absolutely crap the bed. Anyways, that's going to have to be fixed as they continue to grow together and learn how to play together. As the offense improves and the defense continues to improve, I think that can level itself out. I have confidence that can happen, but that is the first thing that they're going to need to fix if they want to take the next step forward and become a bona fide playoff team. Anyways, moving on to the big three. The three biggest needs, in my opinion, on the Denver Broncos. The first one, a little bit, it makes sense, but also kind of doesn't make sense. That's running back. Running back makes sense because they need help in the running game. It was not that good last year. And at the same time, though, they also have bigger needs, bigger positional needs, where running back, and as you know, in the draft is considered a luxury pick. So you don't really take that guy in the first round most of the time, unless you have a roster that's already set. And Ashton Genty, we'll talk about him in a second. Running back and like tight end, for example, those are positions you take when your roster and your core players and your most important positions are set. They're like cherries on top. They're like extra toppings, like a chopped nuts on a Sunday or like whipped cream, right? That's kind of what it is. But for the Broncos, honestly, I could see them going running back in the first round. Now there's rumors swirling that the Cowboys aren't going to look to draft Ashton Genty. And in my opinion, the next realistic team that could fall that really needs a running back is the Denver Broncos. And of course, the Boise State Bronco going to the Denver Broncos already sounds really cool. But also, could you imagine Ashton Genty in Denver? Could you imagine that behind that offensive line with a young quarterback and Bo Nix with Cortland Sutton at receiver? Guys, that's an offense that sounds pretty fun to watch in my opinion. That would be an awesome move. And quite frankly, if Denver drafts Ashton Genty, I'll say it right now, I don't know if I'll have him mocked there. We'll have to see. But if they draft Ashton Genty, I'm giving it an A. I'll pre-give it an A if that's what happens, because they do need a running back and really would help this offense take a big step forward. I think Ashton Genty is that type talented of a prospect to where the idea that a running back being taken in the first round as a luxury pick kind of goes against the grain, the narrative, if you will, because Ashton Genty's that good of a prospect, and an improved running game will really help this offense do better in 2025. The next thing, this is probably truly their biggest need, that's defensive back. They have a couple guys that got hurt and went down during the year. I know I think one guy that's set to be a free agent, but they really need help there. They have Patrick Surtain. They had a corner, a young guy, I think it was in year 2, who showed some good things, but he got hurt. And then Levi Wallace had to step in. Levi Wallace was just garbage. He got exposed that entire game against Cleveland where Jerry Jeudy had his 265-yard game. So they really need help at that position. They also lost Justin Simmons, which his presence or lack of presence was missed. It was felt. So adding someone in that room could be really important for them. And also, the thing with Denver is, it's funny because like their defenses are mostly known for having good secondaries. Obviously, remember like the no-fly zone, and then people talk about the Orange Crush defense, but their secondary was also really good in that time as well. That being said, defensive back is just a need for this defense if they want to take that big step forward, right? They don't need per se to go like crazy and overhaul this group, but if you draft a corner, maybe in the second round, maybe you go first round here, it would be I don't know how big of a reach it would be, but if let's say Ashton Genty's gone, I would love for this team to draft Malachi Starks or what's his name, Nick Amenwari at safety. You look at a Shaylin Revel out of East Carolina. There's a couple other cornerback prospects that are projected to go late in the first round. So there's plenty of prospects in the defensive back spot for Denver to draft if Ashton Genty isn't the move. And so if it's not Genty, it's going to be a defensive back, which I would really appreciate. You get a young, very talented guy, put him next to Patrick Surtain, or in my opinion, I like Malachi Starks. He is the best safety prospect in this draft. But you look at Nick Amenwari and his measurables, and you look at the combine performance that he had. And could you imagine that guy in Vance Joseph's defense? That sounds amazing. That sounds awesome. Because you get a highly talented player, a freakish athlete, and you pair that with a fantastic coach that Vance Joseph is. He's a great defensive mind. That's a recipe for success. And now, obviously, of course, I can't say like, oh, this player's going to do good or not do good. I don't speak like that. That's why I don't do draft content. But that being said, like, that's an exciting thought. That's a very exciting thought. Because as much as Ashton Genty's of the Broncos offenses, Nick Amenwari or Malachi Starks to the defense is like equally as exciting. So DB, again, big need for them. Probably their biggest need realistically, but running back is in conversation here, in consideration. The next thing is wide receiver. They're probably going to go here on day 2 because the thing with Denver is they have Cortland Sutton, who's good, really good. Marvin Mims, he could be a solid deep threat, but he's been inconsistent, so I don't know how reliable that is. They drafted Troy Franklin in the 3rd round or 4th round out of Oregon, Bo Nix's teammate, but Troy Franklin got hurt, and also he's undersized, which led to a lot of those injuries, so I'm not sure about that. A lot of people think they'll go and get Tez Johnson, the receiver out of Oregon, who's actually Bo Nix's brother, but his combine was very bizarre. He's 5'8" or 5'7", or no, he might be 5'11", I think. 5'11", but he's like only like 150 pounds. Ran a 4.5 40, which is really weird. But he also apparently topped he had the fastest MPH at the combine at 25 miles an hour, which I don't even know how that's possible. But then again, we've seen players like that before where they don't run good 40s, but on tape, their speed is much faster. Like Keon Coleman, for example, right? I wasn't high on Keon Coleman because of that 40-yard dash, but going back later on and looking at his tape in pads, he runs faster than a 4.6, which is pretty interesting, but some people do that. And also, when I played football, I was faster with a football in my hands without it. So, hey, that's just a thing that happens in football, I guess. But either way, continuing on, some other needs I'd like them to see get is a linebacker. I would like them to see draft a young guy on day 3 there, just so they can have a young guy to develop and really raise the ceiling of that position group. And then defensive tackle, kind of the same thing. Just add a young guy in there to develop and continue to add depth at that position. And then another one is tight end. Their tight ends had okay production, not great. I would like to see more, but I feel like tight end is kind of like one of those last things. Like I mentioned, it's a luxury pick if you want to take it in the first round or second round. But at the same time, if you really want to go double down on this offense, maybe you draft Ashton Genty in the first round, and then maybe you go with, well, Tyler Warren and Tyler Warren's going to be gone. He's going in the first round. But like a Colston Loveland with his injury, he might fall to the second. I doubt it, but it's a possibility. But if those two guys are gone, the next guy on the board is Harold Fannin Jr. out of Bowling Green. I really like him as a prospect, and he could fit in Denver. So that could work. Instead of you getting like a wide receiver, you get Harold Fannin Jr. who can block. He's a bigger, in a way, he plays like a bigger receiver. So that would really provide a lot of use there. So I can see it. But now all that being said, the Broncos have a lot of work to do. However, if they can add the moves that they need to make and they can continue to improve, I think they could really challenge. They could be one of the teams that challenges Kansas City for the division. Now, call me crazy. That's a crazy take to say right now. But Kansas City, right now, if you were to tell me which team is going to finish better, obviously Kansas City is the obvious answer because, it's them till it isn't. But if we had to sit down and say, okay, can the Chiefs be able to rebuild enough to be competitive? Yes, but also Denver and even the Chargers, who we'll talk about later on, they are smelling blood in the water right now. These two teams, if they can improve, have a true shot of at least really challenging Kansas City for that division crown, which they've held for so long at this point, nearly a decade. So Denver, not only do there's blood in the water for them, but they have a real opportunity to challenge KC for once. And they have the team. They have the players, I think, that can do it. They have the quarterback. They have the coach. They have a good receiver. They have a good defense. And remember, in the first game against Denver, it took a blocked field goal for Kansas City to win that game. They gave Kansas City all they could handle their first go around. So this could be a really fun matchup to watch in 2025 with these two division rivals going at it. And there's a real possibility that Denver does, for the third time, challenge Kansas City for that division crown. Do I think it will happen? Probably not, but it's a fun thought to think about. But Denver, one of the most exciting teams to be following this offseason. Can't wait to see what they can do and what they will ultimately look like next season. But that is going to do it for me today, guys. Hope you guys have enjoyed. Once again, if you're new around here on the channel and like the content that you are listening to, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing. It only takes a couple of seconds. It would help the channel out tremendously and helping me continuing to grow and spread my football passion to more and more people on this platform. Also, Broncos fans, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Who do you want them to draft in the first round? Ashton Genty or a defensive back? Who do you want them to go in for in free agency? What is the biggest need for this team? Along with, do you think that this could be a year that Denver challenges Kansas City and potentially topples them to win the division? I want to hear all your thoughts there. Last thing before we go, make sure you guys share the video if you could, please. Whether it's by word of mouth, by telling your friends, or by social media, getting everybody locked in and locked on to the Shumake Take podcast, getting as many people here as we can, because I come out with great content for you guys every single week. It's fun, it's amazing, and the more people are aware about the channel, the more people that'll get here and help me spread my football passion to more and more people. I love doing this stuff. I love making the content. I hope you guys love what I make for you guys. That being said, hope you guys have enjoyed. We're going to wrap up the AFC West, move on to the AFC South, and then predictions versus reality will be done, and then we'll move on into free agency. But until then, Hope you guys have enjoyed, and I will see you all next time.